Yes, what is up, everybody? So this is going to be a special kind of weekend and rewind, also known as Word, because it's going to be a little more loose. And I'm going to do the top 10 things that I thought were the most important things to talk about this past weekend. Also, I don't really know what I'm doing with my beard here. I'm not doing anything Movember-like, but I feel like I should support the cause, so I'm kind of caught in the crosshairs, as it were. Crosshairs. Almost nailed that. Anyway, different conversation. Let's start with number 10. Newcastle finally win a game. My favorite club in the Premier League finally got 3 points, even though they got outshot at home and they got outpossessed, and they should have been down to Watford like 17-0 in the first half. That's how bad it was. We had 3 injuries in the first half as well. We figured it out. We got the full 3 points. Ayoze Perez off the bench to score the game winner. We only got 2 shots on goal, and that's an improvement though, because against Southampton last weekend we had 0. So we're trending, we're going in the right direction, even though we still suck. 3 points are 3 points are 3 points. And rolling in at number 9, it's Borussia Dortmund, who remain unbeaten in the Bundesliga to stay on top of the league. What I want to focus on is Jadon Sancho. I don't know why I say Sancho. I've got that, I guess, the Latin flavor, because the A's are A's and it's not the short. It doesn't matter. My fear is that because he's doing so well, he's taking valuable minutes away from our American Lord and Savior, Christian Pulisic. And that is unacceptable. That cannot happen. And I need to have words for Lucien Favre, because he needs to play the American. And the crappy part about all of this is that Sancho got his opportunity because Christian Pulisic got hurt. And that sucks, because now he opened the door just slightly and Sancho just came and kicked it open. It was like, no, this is my opportunity. I'm never giving it back. I am the new Lord and Savior of Borussia Dortmund. You're out, Christian Pulisic. And that makes me scared, because Sancho is really good and he's doing great things. And even though he didn't score the goal against Wolfsburg or get the assist, he was the guy that set up the cross that led to the goal. So he still has an impact. It's not like he's playing poorly. He's playing really, really well. I think maybe Christian Pulisic should consider, probably not in January, but over the summer, if this trend continues of him not playing much, of maybe looking to go elsewhere. I'm just saying. Anyway, this was a huge result for Borussia Dortmund because Bayern Munich dropped points against Freiburg at home. This was the 4th consecutive game for Bayern Munich where they didn't get a result at home in all competitions. So there's something brewing there. I'm surprised that their manager, Niko Kovac, is still in the job, because Bayern Munich feel very similar to Real Madrid, where they don't have much patience for their managers, especially if the team is not playing well. And I think we could all agree that Bayern is not playing well as they dropped the points to Freiburg. Well, it was a 1-1 draw, so they dropped 2 points. And that allowed Borussia Dortmund to have a 4-point lead at the top now. Though I love it, right? Because that makes the Bundesliga more exciting. And I think all we want in our lives is more exciting leagues. And coming in at number 8, it's Roma, who got a big result on the road against Fiorentina. It was a 1-1 draw. I predicted 1-1. Guess what? It was 1-1. High five to me. I'm a prediction genius, and that was a great high five. Though, I feel like, if you guys saw this game or not, Roma probably should have won the game. They played really well. They outpossessed. They outshot Fiorentina away from home, which is always a big deal. They were unlucky, though, to give up a penalty. It wasn't a penalty in a million years. The referee made the call, and there was like, I have VAR at my disposal, but I'm not going to use it. I'm pretty sure, or 100% know, that it is a penalty. It wasn't a penalty. Giovanni Simeone probably dove in that situation. Martin Olsen didn't touch him and then got kicked in the face, and Simeone's trail leg hit him, so it was like a double ouch. What I find very interesting was that the referee, who has VAR at his disposal, decided not to look at it and awarded the penalty. It's there. Use it. It takes 30 seconds, 45 seconds, a minute, doesn't matter. But now it's going to cost Roma some huge points that could matter, because I know they're not catching the top 3. They're not going to catch Juventus, who are on fire, by the way, who have 10 wins and 1 draw. They won again this weekend, which is the best start for them in Serie A history, which means they're going to cruise to yet like their 18th straight Scudetto. Inter Milan won 5-0. Napoli won 5-1. Those guys, those 3 that I just mentioned, are definitely going to be in the top 3 for me. But where I fear that these are huge points lost for Roma is with the other section of teams. I'm talking Lazio and AC Milan, who both won this weekend as well. So to have those guys gain ground on them is going to really hurt their chances of maybe getting that 4th spot for the Champions League. I think they'll still get in to the Europa League, but that's not as cool as the Champions League. Anyway, back to VAR. I just don't understand why the referee doesn't do that. Why his ego gets in the way. Just, hey man, it's there for you. That tool is there for you to make the right call, and he didn't do it. And if I was Roma, I'd be pissed. Now that said, I do want to talk about the play that led to the play because Cengiz Ünder made a bad back pass, which led to this whole thing. If he just played forward or made a different decision, then this play wouldn't even have happened. On top of that, I know that Giovanni Simeone is coming under a lot of criticism for diving, but I think any of us in that same situation would have tried to do the same thing and elicit some type of response from the referee. Either you get a yellow card for diving or you draw the penalty, and he drew the penalty. So I don't really blame him at all for that. He's just trying to take advantage of the situation like any player does in any situation. Now moving on to another important VAR call that happened in the Intercontinental Derby between Galatasaray and Fenerbahce. Now, Galatasaray was at home, they were up 2-0, and this call for me changed the game. The player, I think it was Mauricio Isla. He cut in and had already crossed the ball, and then the goalkeeper, Muslera, for Galatasaray, took him out. The play had already happened, the pass had already happened, and then they went back and looked at the VAR and called a penalty. That one, I just don't know. I just don't think that warranted a penalty, and that changed the momentum. And Fenerbahce got back into it and tied it 2-2. They scored that penalty and scored another one. And then there was a big fight after the game in the middle of midfield. I think there was a couple red cards. It was crazy. And that's what we expect from the Intercontinental Derby. I don't know why I'm holding my cheeks so much. I'm just feeling my new beard. When we didn't have VAR, the human error was all the talking points that we talked about afterwards. And now we're using VAR as the talking point. I don't know. I'm a fan of it. I just feel like we need to figure out the proper times to use it. It didn't get used in the Fiorentina-Roma game, and I felt like it was incorrectly used in the Fenerbahce-Galatasaray game. So, I don't know. That's just my 2 cents on that. And up next at number 7, it's David Daheia because he is off to the worst start ever in his Premier League career. He's given up 18 goals in 11 games, and he's only got 1 clean sheet. So I think the big question is it his fault, or is it the defenders in front of him? And I think we could all agree it's probably the defenders in front of him. Victor Lindelof, Chris Smalling, Eric Bailly, whoever else they want to throw there, Scott McTominay, guys that don't usually play that position, playing in that position. It's a bit of a shit show, I would say, in front of him. And I think the biggest issue for me, amongst many issues that I have with Manchester United, is that since they play so deep, he doesn't have time to always react to saves because there's not a lot of space in front of him. He's got defenders in front of him all the time, so he's always having to react and make these reaction saves. Anyway, the big thing for me is that his defense just needs to be about 5 to 10 yards higher, because if they are, then he doesn't have to react on his goal line all the time. He can come off of his line, come out for crosses. He can be more of a presence in the box as opposed to just the 6-yard box or just on his goal line. And it's really frustrating because it just feels like it's easier as a team for them just to sit back in a shell and collapse the lines on top of each other because, hey, just a bunch of bodies thrown here, somebody's going to make a play, but that's not how it works. You need to have more organization, and I just feel like Manchester United lacks that center back or two that are real leaders and get everybody in good spots and to make sure that people don't collapse on each other and they don't collapse on the goalkeeper. I really feel like Manchester United has a lot of talent, but they're missing 1 or 2 pieces that might not even be based on skill or tactical awareness or anything. They're just like personalities, true leaders in the back. And I don't know where they're gonna get those guys. I know they're looking for them. They're willing to spend a bunch of money on the defender from Inter Milan with Skriniar, and now maybe Mehdi Benatia, who I don't really rate. I think he's good, but is he gonna solve that problem? And I don't know if there are really that many center backs out there that really fit the bill. I think Virgil van Dijk would have been a great add. He's been doing wonders for Liverpool and really made that team better. So I think he would be up there for sure, but obviously he's not going to be available. It's a challenging time, I feel like, for Manchester United, and David Daheia is paying the price for that because we all know he's one of the best goalkeepers in the world. And up next at number 6, it's the MLS Cup playoffs, leg 1 of the quarterfinals. Now I know they have Western Conference and Eastern Conference semifinals. It's just the quarterfinals of the whole tournament. There's 8 teams left. They're all vying to be the one champion, and there were some huge results. Now, I talked about this last week where I'm not the biggest fan of the format because the lower seeded team gets to host the first game of a 2-legged affair. So they get to set the tone and then maybe go bunker down for leg 2 to get the result and go on to the conference finals or the semifinals, as it were. So anyway, the first game that I'm going to talk about is the Columbus Crew versus the New York Red Bulls. Now the Red Bulls had a bye in the first round of the playoffs, so this is their first playoff game, and as a reward for being the best team in the league, they had to travel to Columbus. Does that seem fair? It does not. But they did it anyway, and they ended up losing 1-0 off a fantastic flick by Federico Higuain, who's the brother of Gonzalo Higuain, if you recognize the name. I'm sure that you do. Anyway, that ball sprung José Zardes, who was the leading goal scorer for the Columbus Crew all season, and he coolly slotted it past one of the best goalkeepers in the league, in Luis Robles. And now the Crew head to New York this upcoming weekend to play leg 2 with a huge advantage in my mind. And speaking of New York, let's talk about the team that wears blue from there, NYCFC. They were hosting Atlanta United, and I thought they were going to do the business. They were going to set the tone in their postage stamp of a field at Yankee Stadium, and Atlanta United were the better team throughout. They were the deserved 1-0 winners, and I really feel like they're going to go back and slaughter NYCFC when they face them in Atlanta this upcoming weekend. But you never know. If you have David Villa on your team, you always have a chance. And then shifting over to the Western Conference, the Seattle Sounders went into Portland, their hated rivals, and got an early goal. I was like, oh my God, it's the Sounders. They're going to do it again. They're going to get to another MLS Cup final for the 3rd straight year. And then they gave up 2 goals shortly thereafter. And the Timbers now have the advantage going into Seattle. They're up 2-1, and I feel like that's gonna give them the confidence and belief to maybe get a result. So I don't really know what's gonna happen in leg 2. And then finally, my beloved Sporting Kansas City went to Salt Lake to get a result in a very tough place to get a result, and they did it 1-1. But Salt Lake, for me, was pretty impressive. The goal that they scored, Albert Rusnak, you guys have to see this. It was a fantastic goal, and if it had been done anywhere else in any other league, you guys would be like, oh my God, it's the best goal I've ever seen. And here, like, bad defenders and bad goalkeepers and whatever. Total bullshit on that one. This is a fantastic goal, and you should watch it. However, Nick Rimando, the league leader in every single goalkeeping stat of all time in MLS history, made a pretty fundamental mistake, which allowed Kansas City to get back into the game. So it's 1-1 with all the play for in leg 2. So come on, Kansas City. And coming in at number 5, it's Real Madrid for a whole bunch of reasons. But let's start with the positives first. And they won a game. And they scored some goals on top of that. Way to go, fellas. So a big hat tip to new caretaker manager Santiago Solari for getting his first ever La Liga win and a game that they should definitely win, 2-0 over Real Valladolid. But now let's focus on the negatives, and I feel like there are a lot more of those. It took them until the 83rd minute to get a goal in this game, and then they got another one in the 89th minute. But the first one was an own goal, and the second one was a penalty. So it wasn't like they were scoring in the run of play with some of their top players who we expect to score. And I'm looking at you, Gareth Bale or Karim Benzema. You're not doing the job. But your younger players, when they do come in, are making a difference. So I feel like at this point, the season is a bit of a wash from the La Liga perspective. I think Barcelona is going to run away with it. They're going to do the business. They're going to win the title. So why don't you play some of your younger players during that competition, the league, and then rest your older players so that you can try to win a Champions League for the 4th consecutive year. Now, the odds of that happening are super slim. So in some ways, because of how the season has started, I feel like it's a bit of a wash. And you're in transition. And some of your older guys aren't doing it anymore or can't handle the responsibility. And I think you should try to sell them while they still have value. So you get that money for those guys and you say, hey, listen, we're just saving up Eden Hazard. We want you to be the guy. We're going to build it around you. Or, hey, Mbappe, we want to bring you into the fold. We're going to build the team around you. We've got a lot of exciting young players here. Now, I know we've stumbled a little bit this season, but with you, we're going to get back to the top or whatever it is, or Neymar, whoever. But if Madrid struggles, and the longer they struggle, it's going to be harder, I think, to attract top talent. I really do. I mean, if I was Eden Hazard and I saw the situation that was happening in Madrid at the moment, I'd be like, I'm so glad that I didn't sign there because that looks like a train wreck. Now, we could argue that he's a piece of the puzzle that could make Madrid very, very good again. But now he's in a really good situation with Chelsea. Things are going very well there. I'm sure he's happy that he didn't make that move and have to struggle through this transition because at some point Madrid was going to have a dip in form, and we're living through it right now. And next up at number 4, it's Chelsea starting the season unbeaten after 11 games. Now, this is the 3rd time that they've ever done that in their history, and the other 2 times they ended up winning the league title. So you wonder, can they do it again this season, especially because Alvaro Morata is scoring goals. Now, if that guy starts scoring goals, then you know this is going to be a special season. And is Maurizio Sarri a genius manager? I have to say that he is, because he seems to be getting the most out of every single player on his team. And I love how frank he is, because he also told Danny Drinkwater and Victor Moses, I don't have any plans for you guys. You know, he didn't string them along or anything. He's like, listen, they're not part of my plans. They don't fit into my system. They can move on. They can go do whatever they got to do. And I love that. I love that transparency. I love how candid he is. However, I say this knowing that Manchester City are so good right now, and they absolutely demolished Southampton. The Premier League title is really interesting this season because I feel like there are 3 teams that can legitimately win it. You got City, who are the class of the league until proven otherwise. They did it last season. They're doing it this season. They look so good, and they look like they're having so much fun that I'm jealous. I mean, wouldn't it be awesome if you could put on a City jersey just for 90 minutes, just to play with those guys, whether you like City or not, whatever, just to be on the same field with those players, understanding the instructions from the manager, Pep Guardiola, and just running around. And I mean, I feel like a lot of us could probably fit in nicely because there's no drop off. The quality would be so high everywhere else, we could make a few mistakes and it wouldn't be that big of a deal. God, that would be a lot of fun. But also, when I look at Chelsea and I look at Liverpool, that would be a lot of fun as well, to hop in with those guys and to see how they move and what their tactics are. And anyway, it's a great time to be alive. And coming in at number 3, we're gonna do a lap around the world to talk about the games that I was keeping my eyes on this past weekend. Anyway, we're gonna start in Brazil, where Sao Paulo hosted Flamengo. It was a big clash at the top of the table, even though neither team is actually at the top. Palmeiras is on top. They tied 2-2, and Palmeiras won, which means that Palmeiras now has a 6-point lead on top of the table with 6 games to go. So I think they're gonna be league champions, so congratulations to them. And then heading down under, the Melbourne Victory, last season's A-League champions, finally got their first victory, a 1-0 result away from home against the Newcastle Jets. My Brisbane, well, they lost, and then Sydney FC is back on top of the table. So everything is going like it should down under. And then I don't know if you saw this or not, but PSV Eindhoven beat Vitesse, which means they've won 11 straight games to start the season. That's right, they have 11 wins, no losses, and no draws. They are unbeaten. They are killing it in the Eredivisie, and I expect them to win the title, even though there's 23 games left in that season. And then Cruz Azul took the momentum of them winning Copa MX midweek and parlayed that into a huge 2-1 win away from home against Pumas, which means they are now on top of the table with 2 games to go before the playoffs start in Liga MX. Also, I have to mention another big derby that happened in South America. It was in Paraguay. It's Olimpia versus Cerro Porteño, and the game ended 2-2. And from the highlights that I watched, it looked so incredibly intense and emotional that I have to go to this game in the future. And if I go, I'm bringing my Paraguayan friend, Freaky Fabi. He's gonna come with me. And if anybody else wants to go, I think we should just take a big group and make it happen, because I feel like this game would change our lives for the better. Just to be there, to soak in the atmosphere, and then I could take all this information that I learned and bring it back here to the States and try to create something similar. And coming in at number 2, it's the not so boring James Milner, who scored Liverpool's only goal in their 1-1 draw with Arsenal. And why I'm highlighting him in particular is that every time he's scored in the Premier League, he's never lost. It's 49 games, it's a league record, and that is super impressive. And even though his team didn't get the full 3 points, it was an excellent game, I think, by both teams. Now, I've already learned what I needed to learn from Liverpool last season. Now it's just a matter of seeing them extend that and to evolve past that and to take that next step of winning trophies. So that's really my expectation for them. Which means my focus is on Arsenal, who are drastically different than last season in the way that they carry themselves and the belief that they have in their playing style, in following their coach's philosophy, in the players that are on the field. Now, I know that I have been going hard at Granit Xhaka for many, many months, if not a full year at this point, but I thought he played really, really well. And I think when he plays within himself and doesn't try to do too much, he is an excellent player. But when he tries to be a little bit more fancy than he should be, or if he gets a little reckless or emotional, then he becomes a player that I think actually hurts Arsenal. And when he has someone like Lucas Torreira next to him, and when he's not playing left back, I think he's a good fit for the team if he can remain cool, calm, and composed. If he gets outside of that, then that's when I think he gets reckless, and yes, it's a detriment to Arsenal moving forward. So it'll be a big challenge for the manager Unai Emery to make sure that he continues to get the best out of Xhaka, because when you have a good Xhaka, I think you have a good Arsenal team. And obviously, he's good on set pieces as well. Anyway, I can't say enough about this Arsenal performance. I think this is something they can build off of, and I was really impressed. And I don't want to move on to the next thing before I mention this, but Alexander Lacazette. I think he's a special player, and one of my favorite qualities of his is that he wants the responsibility. He wants the accountability. And Arsenal, I feel like we're lacking those types of players in the past. Somebody that would step up and say, hey, get on my back. I'm going to take us where we need to go. I'm going to score the goal. I'm going to make the play defensively that needs to happen. And when they can start adding more of those guys, or at least having players that are already on the team starting to embody that mentality, then I think they're gonna have a lot of success. And for me, they are definitely gonna finish in the top 4 this season. And finally, coming in at number 1, it's the winners of the Warm Ballers gear. And we're gonna have to start with last week because I forgot to announce those winners, and it was for El Clasico. And there were only 2 out of 940 predictions that said 5-1 that Barcelona was going to win, and I wasn't one of them. Prediction God status not confirmed. And this week there were a bunch of winners for the 1-1 scoreline between Arsenal and Liverpool, but I'm only gonna go with 2 because I'm running out of Warm Ballers gear, which means I have to order some more. And I know this is the part where Mike K is like, yes, we need to order some more. There's a demand, there's a thirst for the Warm Ballers gear. Stay warm, everybody. And those 2 winners are, drum roll please, Magic Jim and Kono Chimpanzee. I think I said that right. Or Kono Chimpanzee. Chimpanzee. You are the 2 that did it. I know there were a whole bunch of you guys, but I only went with 2. You'll have another chance to win this week in previews and predictions. So you 2 need to be on the lookout as well. I'll be reaching out very soon. All right, that is it. That is all I got. But let me know your thoughts down in the comments below like you always do. Hit like and subscribe if you wouldn't mind. And then there's some special stuff coming up. We got a vlog coming up, we got career mode, we got previews and predictions, and it's gonna be awesome. And I think you're gonna like it. So then I'll just see you then. Okay, cool. I'm glad we had this talk. Later.